Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the R&D podcast. I am your host, Rachel.
And I'm Talia.
And in this episode, we're going to be talking about empty empty nesters, and what that looks like.
You know, I went and did a little research because we are R&D, research and development, and the average age for the kids to leave the nest is typically around 21 years old, but that's only 49% of the people that will be 21 will leave. So that's pretty much like almost half of the 21-year-olds will actually get their own place. If you're Latina or Latino, you know that doesn't really fly with Latino families, especially if you're a female. The parents want you to leave
when you get married,
until
right?
you get married. But I don't know. A lot of people aren't trying to get married. So, I've seen a lot of that whole thing where they'll move in their significant other and they just, it's for economical reasons. Sometimes people will just stay with the family. So that way, they don't have to have the burden of, one solid income versus everyone kind of, putting into the pot.
I think the hard thing about the age thing is that if you have a high school kid that goes to college, they're going to be away at college until they're 22 years old.
That's true.
And a huge percentage of them move back into the house, especially in the economy that we're in.
Yes, it's so true.
It's very, 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 very expensive for them to go and, let's just say, even rent a room. Yes. I know we're in Southern California renting a room, and we live in a suburban town, and it's $1,500 to rent a room.
Minimum.
So, and that's, minimum just for not even to have a one bedroom. That's just to be in someone else's house. Renting a room, sharing.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very challenging at this point. And so I can see that number would be really high. And I think that the empty nester thing, though, begins maybe at 18 because the kids do go to college.
Yeah.
But then when they come back, it's so tough because now the kid has had freedom.
Yes.
They have their habits, and now the parents kind of gotten used to walking around maybe in their drawers or whatever they've been doing.
Yep.
And then here comes the kid.
And you're like, here he comes.
So let's talk to couples who are approaching the empty nest stage. And I mean empty nest, like the kids have moved out. Maybe they got married and they're not maybe coming back, right? What advice maybe should we give them, or what can we talk about?
I definitely can tell you that, it's hard to come from a place like, I know that in the past, when we've done the podcast, we've come from a place of sharing experiences, but obviously we haven't really experienced this particularly. I do think that what is the sad part about this is it's got to be, it could be a good or a bad thing, right? I saw a lady on TikTok, and sorry that I'm kind of veering away from what you just asked, but I have to share this before I forget. This lady said, women, ladies and gentlemen, she said, please don't complain about taking the kids to practice. Please don't complain about, maybe they do dance, maybe they do soccer, maybe they do all these different activities. She said, because there's going to come a day where they're no longer going to ever need you and they're going to leave. And so she came from a place of just kind of like, she was kind of brokenhearted. Yeah. Because she said, oftentimes I got so caught up with kind of being so upset at the fact that, oh my God, I got to go here, I got to go there. Because, as moms as it is, we're already like, running my gosh, we need dinner and I need to go to the store, I need to buy this. And so you're running around, and there's going to come a point in your life where that's going to stop. And that's what she was basically saying. And I think ever since I heard that, I really, really try not to. I do, but I try not to complain about it. Like, okay, one day she's not going to need me anymore. And it's temporary, But I would say, if I had to give a word of advice, is that sometimes, when I've seen certain women that are empty nesters, they get to a certain age, they will get a little dog, or they're going to get a cat. I personally feel that
if they're living alone, you mean?
I think if they're living alone, or if they even have a significant other, they'll get their little dog because then they need that little bonding aspect, like what they had with their kids. I personally think that if I was married, or if I had someone in my life and I'm at that stage of my life, I would definitely, hopefully I'd have the means to travel. I mean, that would be my MO, is to kind of try to get out in the world. I know oftentimes we're living in moments where we're like, I can't right now. I can't do this right now. I gotta wait. I can't take this trip. I can't take that trip. And sometimes we're so like not living for this moment that we're thinking, well, later I will travel. Well, later I will do this. But I think it's one of those things, Rachel, where, how do you know that, let's just say, I'll give you an example. You're gonna go to see the Coliseum. how do you know that if you're in your 70s, you're going to have the ability to freely walk around
So
like
that's
if you're
what
in your 40s?
So that's what I was gonna say to you is that
You know?
like we both have traveled
Right.
to Europe and you know I did it with my kids. You did it with your
Yeah.
kids to an extent and with girlfriends.
Yeah.
I know that and my kids weren't little when I did it, but
Yeah.
one of the things that I did say to my boys when we were on this particular tour bus to Sorrento or whatever, it takes you up the hill, and we were sitting in the back of the bus, and I told my older son, look at this, and he goes, what? And I go, look at all the people in front of us. And he says, yeah, it's a full bus. I said, no, they all have something in common, and they all had white hair. Like
So-
it was just the
a bunch of
whole
Q-tips
bus,
everywhere?
right?
Cotton
With
balls?
like cotton
Q-
ball, like
Q-tips?
and I said, you're very fortunate to be as young as you are
Yeah.
to be able to experience this, and as well myself, even though I was over the age of 40. And I'm sharing that to say, when we would get off the bus or do the tours or go to the places, you could see them struggling. And it really broke my heart for them, because I thought these people probably worked so hard to be able to save up for retirement to be able to do these things, or they put their family first for so long, the kids first and all the needs first, that now they're getting to do this, and now they physically can't even experience it to the fullest.
I know. I mean, that's what I saw too when I've been on these trips, and especially if you're going into these, like, you're going with the bus tour or what have you, then you start to see that people are in their older ages. And I do think that, whenever you can is a great time. I mean, there's never a bad time to travel. I love traveling myself, but I definitely think that, just living for the moments and enjoying every single moment. Like, okay, so right now you're doing, school drop off and pick up and sports, and just enjoying that, because there's going to come a moment where that's going to end, and they're going to move out.
I think it proves, though, that we as women, we can actually make time for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so I think that there is going to have to be a little bit of a swapping of the time, right? I think if, like, you used to do carpool at this time, then maybe is that the time that you go to Pilates, or is that the time you meet girlfriends, or is that the time that you do whatever that might be, a Bible study. But also in your relationship to be like, all right, babe, like, it's time for us. Like, we've always wanted to take those dance lessons. Maybe we want to learn and go maybe we want to take a cooking class together. Maybe we want to learn a language together.
Yeah.
There's so many things that you can do together to get back to center for each other, and to go, all right, like, we once had fun together, like, let's we do it again?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I definitely can say that there's so many things to this. I think that if you're Latina or Latino, I mean, your family never, I mean, I respectfully, Americans typically have this stigma of once you're 18, you're done.
Even, like,
you're out
kick
of the
the
house.
kids out sometimes.
Yeah, you got to figure it out, and I think that doesn't fly with us. At least for most Latinos, it doesn't fly like that.
Even with our aging population, it's not really like the old folks' home isn't really like the option. It's like, okay, where are we going to move mom into?
Yes.
Where are we going to move dad into?
Yes.
Like, it's more of that mentality.
I agree. And so I think it's one of those things. Like, I mean, that's my take on it. It's like, well, you have to kind of enjoy the moment. Like, that's it. Enjoy the moment.
I think creating a new normal. I know that I lost a son. I've talked about that in a previous episode, and he was 25 when that happened, and part of my coping mechanism is to when the house got really quiet, was to really understand that it would have been quiet anyways. Now I know that that's minimizing a really big thing.
Yeah.
But when you're overcoming, a loss like that, you got to take baby steps, right?
Yeah.
So one of my baby steps was, well, he was of an age where he was already talking about, like, looking at places to move out and stuff like that, with his girlfriend. So to me, it's like, okay, this quietness, like, don't be so sad and heartbroken over the quietness. Understand that the quiet was coming anyway. So there's little things like that I've been able to do on that. And this isn't about grief, but I feel like empty nesters sort of grieve sometimes the life that they had, with the chaos and the busyness and the laughter. And I think if you can just understand that was always part of the plan, was for them to fly. And then now it's time for you to go, well, what am I interested in? Like, what do I like to do?
I know. It is my job and duty to make them independent.
My Auntie Emma, she's such an inspiration, right? Because she's so full of life and she's in her 70s, but she moved to a quiet little town And I was a little bit concerned at first because I'm like, she's such a social butterfly. Like,
Butterfly.
she's going to be so bored going,
Yeah.
oh no, she met a friend and they joined the senior center.
Oh.
And they have so many activities.
I don't even want to talk about the senior center
Okay.
because I've heard.
Okay, we're not
that
going to
they're-
go. But
yeah,
she's very
they
popular
just-
at the senior
okay.
center. But she don't live there. Like,
Oh,
it's
I
just a
get it,
senior center.
understand.
It's an
Yeah.
activity center, but
Yep.
they have so much fun.
Yep, I
And
bet
they
they
do
do.
tours,
Wow.
bingos, there's dating, there's dancing,
a lot
there's
of dating.
karaoke.
Yep.
And so she says, and there's drama, and there's all these
drama.
things. And so I feel like being social, I was just talking to her this weekend about it. And I said, I'm so happy that you're staying very social. Because I feel like that's so important.
Well, that's what keeps the spirit alive. I think the laughing, the just talking and being
Interacting,
around
yeah.
other people. I think that synergy is so important. So, yeah, I mean, I think you just have to enjoy every single moment, and as it goes, you just get to those senior centers. If you're empty nest,
But also
Yes.
keeping in mind relationship wise for the
Yeah.
marriage, okay?
Yes.
On the marriage side, realizing that then you're going to be facing each other a lot more. You're going to be sitting there quiet
well,
with
that's
each other.
why the
It
pandemic, there's
amplifies so
so
much of
much.
what you already are annoyed by them
Oh my
because there's no
gosh.
other distraction. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You got to pray on it,
Pray
and
on
you
it,
got to
yeah.
understand it will arrive. And
It
how many people
will.
get divorced in that time too?
Oh my gosh, a lot of people get divorced at that time, yeah, and yeah, I mean, I think divorce is inevitable at any age. If you're alive and kicking, divorce is going to be inevitable, and that's all I got to say to that.
It could happen. It
It
could
can happen for sure,
Yes.
but you got to keep that synergy alive, though, whatever it is.
Okay, that is
Okay?
done. All right.
No,
Bye,
I'm not
guys.
done. Cheers.